Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to another session from Economicspedia. So, as we have promised you in one of our earlier sessions on public economics concerning canons of taxation, that we will be soon coming up with the second part. So, here it is the part 2 of canon of taxation. Now, in our previous session of canons of taxation, which you can get hold if you just click on the card that is right appearing on your screen, and there in that session, we have talked about the Adam Smith canons that he has given, and we have discussed the four canons of taxation in great details. Now, there in that session, I have mentioned that, however, the modern economics is somehow adding few more canons of taxation to what Adam Smith has given out. Today in this session, we are here to discuss the major canons of taxation that has been given out by the modern economics. Okay, so starting with here also we have four canons that are given out in the modern economics. So first of all, it is the canon of productivity. Now, what is this canon of productivity actually means? So, according to the well-known classical economist in the public finance field, Charles F. Bastable, he has given out this productivity, and according to this Bastable, he mentioned that the taxes must be productive. It's very important that the taxes are productive, and along with that it has to be cost effective also. Okay, so these are the 2 points that has been mentioned by Charles Bastable, and from here this basically this canon implies that the revenue that is accumulated due to taxation, so the revenue yield from any tax, this has to be a very much sizable one. Why? Because this canon further it can be stated that only those taxes should be imposed that do not hamper the productivity effort of the whole community as a whole. Okay, so here the revenue yield that is very important. Revenue yield has to be a sizable one, and it should be in such a way that it does not hamper the effort of the community. Now, when a tax is said to be productive, since here we have mentioned that it has to be productive, so what is the situation when it will be productive? That we need to understand. So productivity, a tax is said to be productive only when it acts as an incentive. It acts as an incentive to what? To production. Okay, so that is how the productivity or the productiveness is related with the production, incentive to production. Alright, so this is in very crisp manner. I have discussed the first canon that has been given out by Sir Charles F. Bastable, that is canon of productivity. Now with that, let's move to the second canon used by the modern economics. That is number 2. It is the canon of elasticity. It is again a very important canon. According to the modern economist, they attach a greater importance to this canon of elasticity. Why? Because first of all, we need to understand what this canon of elasticity actually implies. So this implies that a tax should be flexible. A tax should be flexible, or which is also known as elastic in nature or elastic in yield. And it should be levied. The tax that we are talking about, which is flexible and elastic, it should be levied in such a way that the rates of taxation or the rates of taxes are such that it can be changed easily according to exigencies of the situation. Changed according to the exigencies of the situation. That is, in other words, according to the requirement of every situation, the taxes has to be changed, or it should be like that, that it can easily be changed. What will happen if that is done, or if that is easily done? Whenever the government needs money, suppose a government is in dire need of money, it requires money, okay, requires money, and it must be able to extract as much income as possible without generating any harmful consequences through raising the tax rate. If this is a situation where government needs money, then it can get as much income as it wants, as much income as it wants, but without any harm, without causing any harm uh, by raising the tax rate. This is why the flexibility or the elasticity canon is getting important. And a very classic example of this canon of elasticity is none other than the income tax. Income tax is the one that satisfies this canon of elasticity or the canon of flexibility. Okay, so this is about the second canon that are used by the modern economics or modern public economics, to be very precise. Now moving to the third canon, it is the canon of simplicity. Now you may find a very similarity of this canon with the previous sessions, one of the canon that we have discussed, that is the canon of convenience, but however somehow it is different. So let's get into the details and let's understand what this canon of simplicity actually means. Now the every tax that we are or the government is thinking about, every tax must be simple. It has to be simple or and intelligible to the people so that the taxpayer is able to calculate it without the assistance, without taking the help from any tax consultants. Without any help, if any taxpayer can understand a tax, that much simplicity has to be there in every tax, because that is how canon of simplicity is highlighting the fact that why the taxes needs to be simple. Now let's understand this why part, why it needs to be simple. Because a complex as well as a complicated tax is bound to yield undesirable effects. What type of undesirable effects that we are talking about? Undesirable effects are occurring when we have a complex tax system. Okay, this is coming from this complex tax. Now, what type of undesirable effect is there? Let's understand. Because if there is a complex tax system, then it will encourage the taxpayers to evade the taxes. It's very simple to understand. See, it's a very complex structure. So every taxpayer will have an incentive to evade the tax system whenever the tax system is found to be complex. All right, so this is how the undesirable effects of taxes generates. And also let me mention you that if we have a complicated tax system, that will somehow it will be expensive. So complicated tax systems are expensive to the taxpayers. Why? Because even an honest and educated taxpayer would require the help of the tax consultant, and every tax consultant will definitely be charging some amount of money, and that is how it is getting expensive. So a complicated tax system has two effects, two outcomes. First of all, this is number one, it is a problem that evasion of tax will be more and more, and of course that complicated tax system is expensive. Why? Because every taxpayer, even an educated taxpayer, needs to take help of some tax consultant. So ultimately what will happen in this type of system, in such a tax system, if the tax system is a complicated or a complex one, then the potentiality of breeding corruption in society will be more. So ultimately what is happening? Corruption, that is getting more and more. It is all these things are increasing the level of corruption in the economy. If the system, tax system is a complex one, okay, then this is also, or we can say this is a third problem we have if we have a complex tax system. All right, now with that, let's move to the fourth and the final canon of taxation used by the modern economics, that is the canon of diversity. All right, canon of diversity. Now, the first word that we hear that comes to our mind after hearing this diversity is dynamicism or dynamics. So, diversity talks about the tax system which is dynamics. That means that a country's tax structure ought to be dynamics or diverse in nature rather than having a single or maximum two taxes. So we don't need this. We need this dynamics and diverse tax systems. This is what we need. Why? Because diversification in a tax structure will demand involvement of the majority of the sectors of population. If we have a dynamics, then we can find that more and more people are getting involved. That is involvement of majority. Involvement of majority. All right. And however, if we have a single tax system, then what will happen? Then if a single tax system is introduced, this will definitely go on only for a particular sector will be asked to pay the tax to the national exchequer, leaving a large number of population untouched. So here the burden of tax will be on few people. Got it? So this is the problem. If we have, let's look at it together. If we have a dynamics, then this is a benefit. It involves a greater majority of the population. However, if we have a single or a two type tax system, then only a particular sector of the population is asked to pay the tax, and therefore the burden falls on them. However, if we have a dynamic tax structure, then we find a majority of the people are getting involved, and here the burden, what will happen? The burden will be distributed, right? So it will be distributed, and therefore once it is distributed, the burden falls on everyone equally, and not a selective sector of the individuals are need to tag along the burden of the tax. So obviously incidence of only a single tax structure will be greatest on certain taxpayers, that is few people that I have mentioned. It is like certain taxpayers who are asked to pay. This is a burden on them. But a dynamic or a diverse tax structure that we have mentioned here, if we have this dynamics and a diverse tax structure, then it will result in the allocation of burden of taxes among the vast population. So ultimately, since the burden is getting distributed, we can find that it results in a low degree of incidence of a tax on aggregate. Because why the aggregate term is here? Since the whole population is involved, whole population is getting involved, that is why there is a low degree of incidence of tax on aggregate. Alright, so this is the canon of diversity. And here in this short session, we have tried to capture the very important canons. After Adam Smith has mentioned his 4 canons, we have discussed in very crisp manner, in a very highlighted way, that the facts that you need to keep in mind. Okay, now further, the canons of taxes that we have mentioned in this session today, they are definitely required and they are considered to be very much essential for a good tax policy, because the canons of taxation or the characteristics of taxation implies the characteristics that are ought to be there for a good tax system. These are the further canons which are essential. But unfortunately, we are finding that such an ideal tax. Now, here is the catch. Ideal tax, as I have mentioned in my previous session also, that ideal tax system is what we need. Ideal tax system. So these canons are very much important to guide us through this ideal tax system. But as you understand that unfortunately such an ideal tax system is rarely observed in the real world. So this is where a big question mark is there. How to get to this ideal tax system? Now, these canons are there to guide us through, but it's not always possible to have these canons in a real world, because it's a more complicated world. Real world is a more complicated world and a far different from what we read in theories. Therefore, the tax authorities, they have to go on maintaining relentlessly the canons of taxation that we have mentioned in the 2 sessions of public economics, so that if not an ideal tax system is achieved, at least we can get to the what we call near ideal tax structure. Okay, so this should be the aim, that at least we get to the near ideal tax structure. Alright, so with this, we are finishing off with the canons of taxation in the 2 sessions that we have discussed very detailed, but in a very crisp manner, of course. However, if you want to get into details, do contact us. Contact details are appearing on the screen. Make sure you contact us via mail, WhatsApp, or even you can ask us below in the comment section. And for the further notes or study material on this particular topic of canon of taxation, feel free to contact us. Thank you very much for watching, and if you find this video helpful, make sure you hit the like button, and if you are new to our channel, subscribe to the channel and also press the bell icon so that you never miss any update from our channel. Thank you very much for the support. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in my next session soon.